What's going on, everyone? So, a pretty massive announcement, and the entire set revealed today. So, we've got a lot to talk about. First off, why did the entire set get revealed? Well, it's because of the announcement from FFG. They said, in the past several weeks, we have learned that the full card files for the upcoming set have been leaked. We know that access to these files can give players who have them an advantage in future competitions, like the Galactic Championship, which is coming up very soon. In order to maintain a leveling playing field, we have now published all of the standard cards on their website. So it turns out that the leak that we said that content creators got access to the cards, well, was actually just a leak in general. Now, I'm not going to speculate here, or I'm not going to conspiracy theorize here. But I'll say this, the person who leaked that the content creators had access to the cards also was correct about the card that they leaked, which is Kylo Ren, Rey, and Anakin. Everything that was said in that post was 100% true. So while they say the full card files for the upcoming set had been leaked, it must have just been leaked to select content creators, which does bode the question. Is this something that they're kind of just saying, hey, well, now we're going to release it to everyone, even though we intended just to give it to the content creators? Well, they leaked that information, not the actual card pool, but the information. Because to be honest, the full card files I haven't seen the full card files of the set at all. So whoever it was leaked to was a select few. So that's something to consider. But regardless, FFG's response in terms of maintaining a level playing field is to just forego the spoiler season. As they said, it does interrupt the planned preview season, but yeah, we're going to still highlight certain cards, prestige variants, and some of that, but they're not going to do the standard, okay, here's a leader, Tuesday, Thursday, etc., etc. We're just going to go ahead and drop the full spoiler. So whether this was, we're going to release partial information and then those people went around to all the content creators that they like and release the information in their private discords and things like that, who knows? I don't know. It could be that. It could just be that one of their employees, the people who had full card files, actually went and leaked it to a bunch of people. I don't know. But all I'm saying is, as a general public, we didn't have access to the cards. So it was really only select few. Whether those people were content creators or not, that's something that, who knows, right? So what that means is we've got a lot of spoilers today. In fact, we have the rest of the set spoiler. So this is going to be a little bit of a longer video, and we've got a lot of cards to talk about. Starting us off with some new leaders, including Kylo Ren. Guys, some of the cards might be just a little bit, smaller, because I'm just pulling them straight from the website. That's where it's at right now. But Kylo Ren, Vigilance, Vilainy, action to discard a card from your hand. If you discard an upgrade this way, you get to draw a card. So kind of just like some filtering. Okay, but what's the advantage of just discarding a card from your hand? There isn't a whole lot, right? Unless you're using like Migs Mayfeld. Honestly, you can't really think about this action without talking about his flip side, which he's a Force First Order unit, 7 to deploy, 5/5 Sentinel. You'd think, okay, 7 to deploy, 5/5 Sentinel. This card is garbage. But here's the cool part about him, and I do think this is actually really interesting. When you deploy him, you play any number of upgrades from your discard pile on this unit. So the idea here is you're playing your deck, you got a bunch of upgrades, maybe you're playing like 20 upgrades or so in your deck, and you just discard every single turn you're using this action. You get to filter your hand essentially down to the cards that actually matter in the early game. Maybe you play command so you can ramp into them. That's what I'd probably do. Resupply super laser technicians, that type of thing. And then you're playing a bunch of removal, but you're fortunately discarding a bunch of your cards. You put Kylo Ren down, and then your opponent can't respond by, takedowning him or anything like that. The only realistic way to deal with Kylo Ren at that stage would be to Rival's Fall or potentially exhaust him or try to defeat a bunch of upgrades, as long as you've survived to that point. Because as soon as you deploy him, you can play any number of your upgrades from your discard pile on this unit as soon as you deploy him. So let's say, you got a bunch of upgrades, just things like brutal traditions or academy training, and then it suddenly becomes like a 13 the 15 17 8 whatever it is, but with a big sentinel butt. Like, he's gonna completely clog up the ground. So I do think this actually is a very interesting win condition and a very interesting card to build around. Do I think it's going to be competitive? I don't think so, but I do think it'll be a very fun casual style deck, and I could see this doing some major work in like Twin Suns, for example. So really, really cool stuff with Kylo Ren. But we have a few more leaders to talk about, including the new Rey leader. As I said about that leak, we were expecting Kylo and Rey, and we got Kylo and Rey. And this one is the Aggression Heroism sign, which we did say it was going to be previously. Action: if you played a non-unit force card this phase, deal 1 damage to a unit. So we were wondering, okay, when are we going to get that leader that cares about events? Well, this is the leader. Any non-unit force card, you're able to go out and just ping something, which is actually pretty interesting, right? Let's say you play, well, actually, there's not like a ton of force cards. Let's say you play Force Throw, right? Force Throw is a force card, and it's not a unit, it's an event, and suddenly you force throw, you make them discard like a 2 or 3 drop, and then you get to deal another damage to them, right? That's pretty powerful. So definitely has some synergies, definitely does some good work. Of course, you could play things like basically any force card really, but like Sorcerous Blast was a new one with the force synergies. We've got Force Throw, as I mentioned. Anything that is a non-unit force card, we could play upgrades, right? So if you have force upgrades, that also works. But the 1 damage isn't too crazy. So there's got to be something else really synergizing with this, because I don't think this is like enough to really want to play Rey. But she does deploy on 7 as a 6/8. And when you deploy her, you may discard your hand if you do draw 2 cards, which I don't think is very good. So 7 to deploy, 6/8, yes, a pretty good stat line for 7. Darth Vader's like a 5/8, right? Like it's definitely a solid stat line, better than what we've seen in the past. But at this point, the kind of idea with this, and I do like the idea, because in other card games, this is exactly what you'd want. You're in the early game, you're playing all these force cards, especially some of the new ones that we're going to talk about today, and you're dealing damage to units, you're clearing them off, blah, 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 blah. You get to the late game, and you're out of cards, and then you need a refill. And then boom, you play this, you discard your hand, which is nothing or no cards or 1 card in hand. You draw 2, you refill, you keep using events to push forward in the game. But unfortunately, in this game, that's probably not a winning strategy. It's going to be pretty tough to utilize all the different cards in the game to make it so that you can actually take advantage of the action, but then also have enough force units on the board to take advantage of the force cards that synergize with the force units, and actually get enough value from this action to stall you out till 7 resources. And even if you do, a 6/8 isn't actually all that powerful in the grand scheme of leaders that deploy later on in the game. If you just think about this like compared to Yoda's a 4/9, which actually goes ahead and just trades with Rey. It's got Restore 2, also has kill a unit when it comes down, right? Like that's insane. So I do think Rey is on the weaker side of things. Next up, though, we've got Barriss Offee. Really, really interesting one for those of you that watch Tales of the Empire. Barriss Offee, we've got an action: use the Force, play an event from your hand. It costs 1 less. This is pretty interesting, to be honest, right? Obviously, using the Force, going to be a cost, going to have to build your deck around it. But if you think about a lot of the decks that we've been playing lately, and I'm sure I even recorded a couple before even the big spoiler drop, so there's a lot more options. But there's a lot of cards like Liberated by Darkness, or heck, even Waylay, for example. Just getting these resource cost reductions on a bunch of these random units, heck, even like a Surprise Strike, just being able to reduce the cost of a lot of your popular events is quite strong. And you can build a deck where you are generating the Force token quite often. Actually, Cunning Vilainy is one of the aspects that I do think it's the easiest, or one of the easier ones to do, especially with cards like Shin Hati, who are very likely to survive to be able to start attacking and generate the Force. I do think you're going to want to run the 20 HP base. All the other 25 HP bases have been not exceptionally powerful. I do think the Vigilance one does have some potential, and I do think the Command one, if you're doing some explosive things, but this seems more of like a value-oriented leader to get some value as you go along and be able to reach the point where you can deploy Barriss and then maybe come back in the game. And on the flip side, she does deploy for 6, 4, 7, and has the same action, but instead of exhausting, you get to just do it multiple times in a turn as long as you have the Force. So 4, 7, 6 deploy, definitely a solid stat line. Nothing to complain about there, nothing to get excited about either, though. And again, we're all about, okay, I'm going to cheat on cost with a bunch of these force events, or a bunch of these events in general. It doesn't have to be force events, but having to use the force to cheat on cost for a bunch of these events definitely can be very powerful. I can only imagine, like, here's a perfect example. Turn 1, you just play something random. Maybe you're just playing a crafty smuggler to put some pressure onto your opponent. Turn 2, you play Shin Hati. She has hidden, she has shielded, very likely to not get attacked and not die. Very, very likely. I've played a lot of Shin Hati. There's a lot of times where she just doesn't die, right? Okay, so turn 3, you attack with Shin. You got 4 resources. You have the force because you have the base. Overwhelming Barrage. You can turn 3 Overwhelming Barrage with Shin, which is 6 damage. That's incredible. That's pretty incredible. So you can do some cool things like that, which I do think Barris does have some really interesting options for it. Obviously, Vigilance is one of the aspects that I do gravitate towards, even though I mentioned Overwhelming Barrage. You just have so many powerful events. Power of the Dark Side, Vigilance, Takedown, Fell the Dragon. All those things can be played for cheaper. Heck, you could even go for like a double Cunning aggro deck where you have the force, you're generating the force a bunch with Balin, Darth Tyrannus, Shin, and then you get to play Cunning for 3 resources, and then you get to Surprise Strike right after. You get to go 5 resource Cunning plus Surprise Strike. Things like that, I can imagine just being so incredibly powerful. So definitely something that I think is really interesting for Barris. Next up, we've got our final leader of the set. And guys, like I said, this guy is the Vilainy Heroism Anakin that we got leaked. The stat line is a little bit different, but still incredibly strong. Anakin Skywalker, solo heroism leader. Action, use the force. You get to play a Vilainy non-unit card from your hand, ignoring its aspect penalties. When we saw the leak, I had mentioned it probably also says ignoring aspect penalties, because if it doesn't, it's basically garbage. But guess what? It does. So that's what we expected. Power of the Dark Side immediately comes to mind. But of course, we talked about Anakin in the past, and the new Anakin unit, the one that gives, -3/-3 for a heroism card in your discard pile and -3/-3 for a villainy card in your discard pile, suddenly becomes disgustingly broken, right? As I mentioned, Anakin, in my opinion, especially with the experience I've had, is significantly even more impactful than something like a Luke Skywalker if you're able to reliably trigger the heroism and villainy synergy. Here's the problem with it so far, is that the decks that we have been building and trying to take advantage of Anakin have gotten weaker because you're playing this mix of aspect decks that don't really function all that well. This Anakin could change that. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case, because not only do you get to play this mix of villainy and heroism cards, you get to play the powerful villainy events like Power of the Dark Side, while also playing the powerful heroism units, but you also get a 5 to deploy leader as a 4/6, okay? 4/6, 5 to deploy leader, great stat line, very aggressive, has an action to use the force, and you get to play a non-unit villainy card from your hand, ignoring its aspect penalties, so multiple times in a turn. So here's the thing with this. Again, what are we going to be playing? Power of the Dark Side is the key card that comes to mind, but there's also, a bunch of other options, because you don't just have to play events. You can play things like Darth Revan's lightsabers if you wanted to. Not that I think you should be, but you can also play things like Drain Essence to generate the force again, and then maybe chain into more villainy events and things like that. Definitely a lot of options with this, and I do think it is quite strong to be able to go ahead and really just benefit from Anakin. If nothing else, just having Anakin in your deck and very reliably being able to get the double triggers is going to make this deck extremely powerful, especially since he's got a 5 to deploy 4/6 leader. That just is very, very strong. I do think there's a lot of potential with this card, and it's more of, okay, yes, this is interesting, but what are the non-unit villainy events that we're going to get from the set, right? Are there going to be things that synergize with Anakin? And, well, there's a bunch of them to go over, so we get to dive in. Let's move over to the new units, events, and upgrades. Starting us off here with Kylo Ren's lightsaber. This is a 2-cost upgrade in Vigilance Villainy. If a touch unit is a force unit, it gains. This unit can't be exhausted by enemy card abilities. So you remember earlier how I was talking about Kylo Ren and saying that the only thing that's really going to counter him is like exhausting or Rivals Fall? Well, now that exhausting portion is not possible for the most part. So another upgrade where you'll probably just play it in Kylo Ren because you don't want him to get exhausted. Gets a ton of toughness, a ton of value by not being exhausted, and it's probably just going to be able to win you the game, right? Very, very strong. I think it's literally only used for Kylo Ren for the most part, but I do think it synergizes quite well. Next up, we've got Always 2. This is a new 4-cost event in Vigilance Villainy. Choose 2 friendly Sith units. If you do, give 2 shield tokens and 2 experience tokens to each chosen unit. Defeat all other friendly units. So if you got a Sith aggro deck, you deploy this. 2 shield tokens and 2 experience tokens is disgusting. Honestly, like that is dumb. That is a lot of power. If you think about something like the Force is With Me, the 4-cost event that gives 2 experience tokens and a shield token to a single unit, yes, you get to attack with it, but the difference between the power level of that card and this one is immense, and that card's already pretty powerful in a Force-based deck. Here's the kicker for this one, though. It does say choose 2 friendly unique Sith units. Like, you need to have 2 friendly unique Sith units, period. And you don't want more than that because otherwise you just get them defeated. So if you're going something like Darth Tyrannus into another Sith unit, maybe you got something there. It's going to be a little bit trickier because Sith isn't like a extremely common tag. You've got things like the Asajj Ventress. You've got things like Darth Tyrannus, like I mentioned, Darth Malak. You've got the Scimitar, which is interesting. Remember, this has 2 friendly unique Sith units, and technically the Scimitar is a unique unit, which is kind of fun there. HK-47 is a Sith unit, so technically, if you really want to do something crazy with this, you could kind of curve into it. You can go like HK-47 into another Sith unit, because again, there's not a crazy amount of them, but you could go like HK-47 into, let's say on turn 3 you go Scimitar or Darth Tyrannus, and then after that, which is technically your 5 resource turn, you can play Always 2 and get massive buffs on both of them, which is pretty awesome to consider. But you also have like the leaders, right? You don't even just necessarily have to only play the units, because something like Darth Revan is a Sith. And if you're playing Vigilance Revan, you suddenly get to play Darth Revan, play Malak on that turn. Next turn, you play Always 2 shield tokens, 2 experience tokens. Boom, you are in the money. Or you could even play like Asajj Ventress, which is a 4 to deploy leader. And maybe you deployed a Sith unit before that, which is very possible. As I mentioned, like HK-47 is a Sith unit. So you play HK-47, you deploy Asajj Ventress, Always 2, boom. HK-47 becomes a 4/6 double shielded. Asajj Ventress becomes a 5/6 double shielded. And it's an event, which means she's attacking you for a 6/6 first striker. There's some cool things with this one. And I'm not going to talk about it for a crazy amount of time because I do think it's really cool, but it's very, very specific. So I do think it's going to be hard to work. Next up, we've got 5-cost event, The Tragedy of Plagueis. 5-cost in Vigilance Villainy. Choose a friendly unit. For this phase, it can't be defeated by having no remaining HP. An opponent choosing a unit they control, defeat that unit. Pretty awesome, because you got to use this as a way to guarantee an attack while also defeating your opponent's units. And assuming they have only 1 unit on the battlefield, it's basically like a Power of the Dark Side. Remember, this means that this can defeat leader units. It's not non-leader unit. This is pretty awesome. I don't think it's going to be like incredibly powerful because it'll say choose a friendly unit. So you do need a friendly unit to target. And if you're having a friendly unit to target, are they going to have only 1 unit on their battlefield? Maybe. If that's the case, are you already winning? I mean, this does potentially have you win more, but is it just a win more card? I don't know for what purposes the beginning part of it would be exceptionally powerful. The only thing I think about is like when you're in a situation where you really need your unit to live, but oftentimes that's to play another card, and instead you could just play that card instead of playing Tragedy of Plagueis to get your value in. I'm sure there's a lot of situations where like maybe you're about to win the game and you need your unit to survive, so maybe that's something, but it still can be defeated by typical events. Like, it's just defeated by having no remaining HP. There are cards that just say defeat, which would bypass this. So something to think about. But that's all of our Villainy Vigilance cards. We move on to Vigilance Heroism with Jedi Holocron. And I better pick up the pace here because, guys, we are going to be here for a long time. And you guys may like that. And I could talk for a while. So we'll see. Maybe we'll just end up with a 2-hour video. 1 cost upgrade in Jedi Holocron Vigilance Heroism. Attached to a force unit. Attached unit gains on attack. You may heal 3 damage from another unit. +1/+1. So the idea here is you kind of get that Sith Holocron, Jedi Holocron. Sith Holocron's all about punching in a bunch of damage. This one's about healing damage from your other units. Honestly, I could see this being like a one of in a lot of Force decks. Putting this on in certain circumstances could definitely give you a ton of value. I wish it just said on attack you may heal 3 damage from a unit, because there's sometimes where like you put the Jedi Holocron on a unit that's already damaged to just give it a little bit extra toughness so that it'll survive something, and then, well, your opponent had already attacked it, or maybe it was already damaged, and now you get to heal the damage off. But again, I think it's maybe just like a one of in some Force decks. Next up, we've got Jedi Trials. This is a 1 cost upgrade in Vigilance Heroism. Attached to a Force unit on attack, give an experience token to this unit. When attached unit has 4 more upgrades on it, it gains the Jedi trait. So remember, this counts as an upgrade, which means it just needs 3 experience tokens to get the Jedi trait. Realistically, if you're playing a Force Heroism deck, most of your cards are going to be Jedis. So I don't think this is like a crazy advantage. Realistically, you just need to figure out if this on attack given experience token to this unit is actually that valuable. If you think about it, it's not bad if you're able to actually keep your unit alive. So the first attack, it attacks for +1/+1. So it's 1 cost +1/+1. Second attack, it's 1 cost +2/+2. Third attack, it's 1 cost +3/+3. And it does scale pretty quickly. So if you're in a situation where you can maintain control of the board, I think this could be pretty powerful. If you're worried about like waylays or takedowns or power of the dark sides, this is horrible. And to be honest, even in some of those situations, like you could always just play Jedi Trials and then your opponent can just attack and trade, which is also a big downside. So I don't like the fact that you don't get immediate buff up so that you can push in that damage, that you can get that experience token train rolling. So I don't think it's all that crazy again. Next up, we've got Heirloom Lightsaber. This is a 2 cost upgrade in Vigilance Heroism attached to a non-vehicle unit. If it's a Force unit, it gains Restore 1, and it's +2/+2. So 2 cost, +2/+2, pretty horrible. Not something that we're ever really playing. But Restore 1, is it good enough? I don't think so. Devotion is a card that we used to play, but has basically seen no play outside of set 1 and set 2. And that had Restore 2. Granted, it was +1/+1, but even so, this one's even more restrictive by saying you need a Force unit to have Restore, and you can't put it on vehicles, which is one of the best things about Devotion. So I don't see this being playable, really. Calm in the Storm. This one's kind of interesting. It's a 2 cost event in Vigilance Heroism. Exhaust a friendly unit. If you do, give a shield token and 2 experience tokens to it. So exhaust it, you get to buff it up. Not bad, not insane, because one of the powerful things about, like I mentioned earlier, the Force is with me, is that not only do you get to apply those buffs, but you get to immediately affect the board with them. This one's more of like a grindy, value-oriented one, and I could see it being pretty valuable if you had Sentinels. That's the thing that I was thinking about this, is like, let's say I've got Obi-Wan as my leader, I deploy him, I play Calm in the Storm, suddenly instead of a 4/7 with Sentinel, he's a 5/8 Sentinel, or a 6/9 Sentinel rather, with a shield token. That could be kind of interesting, but you do really need to have something that's going to force your opponent into it, because otherwise you're just not affecting the board at all. As we move on, we are into double vigilance here with Size Matters Not. 3 cost upgrade. If you control a Force unit, this upgrade costs 1 less, so it'll cost 2. And it just says attached unit's printed power is considered to be 5, and the printed HP is considered to be 5. So very, very interesting upgrade. Can be anywhere from like +4/+4, or even like +5/+1 to, +2/2 or +3/3. Very, very all over the place. Realistically, though, it is going to be a card that is very specific for some of your earlier game units. One of the cards that I think is a little bit interesting for this is like the shielded ones, where you have like a 2/2 shielded and you put this on there, and then suddenly you've got a 5/5 shielded. Like, that can definitely do some work. But another one people were talking about is like Barriss Offee. On like turn 2, you play Barriss Offee, you put Size Matters Not on her, and she's a 5/5. Like, that's kind of cool. But realistically, I don't think this card is like all that crazy, unless, well, there's some specific synergy that I don't remember, because I only did a brief look through the future cards. So Size matters not incredibly strong. Here's some incredible units now, though, in Vigilance. Secretive Sage. This guy, very straightforward, guys. 2-cost ground unit in Vigilance. It's a 2/2 shielded. That's it. It's a force card as well, right? Remember how I was talking about force units that work where size matters not? Well, this is one of them. And it's a crafty smuggler, but in Vigilance. Gar Saxon, anyone? 3/2 shielded, +1 3/2 shielded. That is incredible. I do think this guy is going to see some play. It's a force unit. You're going to want it. It's going to, get in some attacks. I think any deck that's playing Vigilance that's going to be running force synergies is going to play this guy 3 of, period. That's just pretty much it. Axe Woves here, 3-cost ground unit in Vigilance, 2/2 shielded, but it gets an +1/+1 for each upgrade on him. This guy looks pretty awesome. Another Gar Saxon, right? Comes down as a 4/3 shielded. That's incredible for 3 resources. I do think he's kind of mediocre in other lists because he's just going to be a 3/3 shielded, but every experience token means +2/+2 on him, which is kind of interesting. So if you do happen to have a way to get some experience tokens on him, I definitely think he could get very, very big very, very quickly. But again, I'm thinking more of for Gar Saxon. Next up, we've got Tauntaun. This is a 3-cost ground unit in Vigilance. It's a 3/3 creature. When defeated, you may give a shield token to a damaged non-vehicle unit. Pretty straightforward. Pretty mediocre. 3-cost 3/3. Not that strong. And oftentimes when he's defeated, you're probably not going to be in a situation where you have another unit that hadn't just been straight up killed. Otherwise, it's going to be a pretty big unit, I suppose, and maybe your opponent doesn't even want to defeat the Tauntaun. But then if you're like defeating your Tauntaun just to give a shield token to one of your bigger units, you could have just played a different event to do that instead. Next up, we've got Awakened Specters. Straightforward, 4-cost ground unit, 4/5 Night Undead. That's it. Just a common. Decent stat line. Nothing like super exciting. Definitely like a weaker card. Obviously, if I'm in Heroism, I'm playing Cunning, but maybe the night tag is going to be more relevant in the future. I would say for this set, it's not relevant enough. So pretty just much a common. That's it. Next up, we've got, where are ya? Bolstered in Endurance. 1-cost upgrade attached to a force unit, +1/+3. So definitely above the curve in terms of what stats you're getting. +1/+3 is 4 points of stats. That's usually reserved for 2-cost upgrades or something else more expensive. But the restriction is attached to a force unit. I could see this maybe being played in Kylo Ren, but probably not in other decks. Next up, we've got Whirlwind of Power. Give a unit -2/-2 for this phase. If you control a force unit, give it -3/-3 for the phase instead. This one, I could see maybe giving some value for your force decks. 3-cost event giving -3/-3 is pretty good. We've seen -2/-2 being used in like Make an Opening. Definitely not played as much as anymore. This one's more of a value-oriented play by giving something -3/-3 while you're actively affecting the board. But I don't think it's going to be all that incredible. We talked about Hello there. Giving something -4/-4 is significantly better. And that card was basically never played. So I don't know about Whirlwind of Power. Seems interesting. And I could definitely see it as like a 1 or 2 of, but I don't think it's incredibly powerful. And that's the end of Vigilance. But now we get to move on to command cards. Starting us off with Vilainy, 2-cost ground unit in Command Vilainy, and all these are going to be Command Vilainy for the most part until we reach into Command Heroism. 2/4 Imperial Sith Official. When played and on attack, you may defeat an experience token on a friendly unit. If you do, give an experience token to a friendly unit. So the idea here is that you get to move around your experience tokens. It is a Sith card, which is kind of cool because you can chain some Sith synergies together, like always too. But realistically, I don't think this ability is like that incredible. There's not going to be a whole lot of experience tokens when you're going to be playing this guy. Usually, the leader that I immediately think about is like Tarkin or Snoke, right? Those are going to be passing around experience tokens, and you get to move them to where you want them to be. Especially since, let's say, this guy's an Imperial unit. You put experience tokens from Tarkin onto him, and then you attack, and then move them from him to a non-Imperial unit. Like, you could do that, but nothing too crazy going on there. Next up, we've got Praetorian Guard, 3-cost ground unit, 2/5 first order. It's got the command Villainy. Well, you control a unit with 4 or more power, it gains Sentinel. Obviously, Knight of Ren, which is right next to it, 4 powered units. 4 powered is not too difficult to come by. 2/5 Sentinel, not extremely exciting for 3 resources. So pretty average overall looking card. And I don't think it's going to be played all that much. Next up, we've got Eighth Brother. This is a 6 cost ground unit, 5/7 ambusher. It's got the Force and Inquisitor tags. When you play another unit, you may use the Force. If you do, you give a unit +2/+2 for this phase. So 5/7 ambusher for 6. Not as good as, having 6 power, but 5 power is usually enough to make an impact on the board. So I do not mind that. But after that, are we going to get a lot of value? We might, right? We could end up in a situation where let's say, play Eighth Brother. You have the Force base. So you play him, you ambush, you get the Force. Then the following turn, you play Darth Vader. Okay, Darth Vader comes down. You use the Force. You give +2/+2 to Eighth Brother. You then attack with Vader, ambushing first to generate the Force token again. Then you play your unit that you can play from Vader for free, allowing you to use the Force again to give another +2/+2 to something. That's something that's pretty cool. I think that if you're obviously playing Command Villainy and you're getting to 6 resources, I think that's a deck that you're probably playing just multiple copies of Vaders in. So I think that synergy is going to be pretty common, honestly. But I don't know if Eighth Brother is good enough to just warrant playing him for that specific scenario, because otherwise he's just a 5/7 ambusher if you're not using the Force, and that's not that powerful. Next up, we've got Inquisitor's Lightsaber. This is a 2-cost upgrade. Attached unit gains while attacking a Force unit. This unit gains +2/+0, and it's +1/+3 in terms of stat line. So pretty weak stat line for 2 resources. Definitely want more power from that one, but does affect enemy Force units pretty, poorly for them, because you're going to get +2/+0 when fighting them. So I don't know if this is going to be really playable. We don't have enough Force units in the meta to warrant playing your whatever deck and then playing Inquisitor's Lightsaber in it to beat those Force units. We're going to have a lot more Force units, but I don't think this is going to be a card that people are going to be trying to use to counter those Force units. Next up, we've got Craving Power. This one's very interesting. It's a 5-cost upgrading Command Villainy. Attached to a friendly unit. When played, deal damage to a enemy unit equal to the attached unit's power +2/+2. So first thing with this Craving Power here, it comes down. You get +2/+2 first, and then you get to deal damage, right? Because it's an upgrade. So when you play this, let's say you've got like a 2-powered unit. You're dealing 4 damage to something. 3-powered unit, 5 damage to something. 4-powered unit, 6 damage to something. Very likely you could have a 3 or 4 powered unit when this thing comes down. The other thing to note is Kylo Ren. In Kylo Ren, this thing comes down and probably just kills anything in the entire game, realistically, which I think is pretty cool. So I do think this is something that might be worthwhile in decks that are really wanting upgrades. But remember, this is the Overwhelming Barrage slot for 5 resources. Do you want to be playing Craving Power in addition to Overwhelming Barrage, or just Overwhelming Barrage? Probably just Overwhelming Barrage is my guess for most decks. Point Rain Reclaimer is next. 1-cost ground unit in Command Heroism now, so we're entering the Heroism territory. 1/2, when played, if you control a Jedi unit, you may give an experience token to this unit. So if you have a Jedi unit, you get a 2/3. Okay, not bad, not great. Just definitely something, if you're going wide and you're playing Jedi, then it's going to be pretty good. Next up, we've got Lor San. It's a 2-cost ground unit, 3/2 resistance unit. When defeated, you may give an experience token to a unique unit. So a 3/2 that gives an experience token when it dies, not bad at all. Doesn't have any relevant tags though, and I think that's the biggest thing. And you do need to have a unique unit on the following turn, which is very likely to happen. So I don't think the condition of having a unique unit is all that crazy. Think of it like you just play Blue Leader. That's now a unique unit, right? You play a Yoda. That's a unique unit. You play Ezra. That's a unique unit. So we really need to figure out if the downside of not having other tags is balanced out by the fact that you got a when defeated trigger. And I think in most decks, that's going to be a no. Next up, we've got the new Leia Organa. This one's kind of a fun one. She's actually a 5-cost space unit in Command Heroism. She's a 5/5 Force Resistance official. She says, while this unit is in the space arena, she can't ready and gains action, use the Force, move this unit to the ground arena, and give each friendly unit, Heroism unit, +2/+2 for the phase. So 5-cost ground unit or a space unit that kind of moves to the ground arena and then pumps up all your units. But remember, you don't get to have her be readied immediately. You can play this, then use the action and get +2/+2 for all your units. But it's not going to be all that powerful because you're going to have a lot of Heroism units to actually benefit from Leia. Maybe a secondary option for like Rex, like double green Rex. You can be playing Leia instead of just playing Unity of Purpose. You play Rex, you put Leia down, suddenly all of your clone troopers get buffed up. Like maybe some of them there, but I don't think it's all that strong. Next up, we've got Yoda. This is a 8-cost ground unit, 5/9. When played, you may use the Force if you do heal 5 damage from a base. When you use the Force, you may deal damage to a unit equal to twice the number of units you control. So obviously, let's say you just have Yoda, you play him, you use the Force, you get to heal 5 and deal 2 to something. Let's see, you have another unit, it's deal 4, and a third unit, it's deal 6. Definitely scales pretty quick. This one, very expensive. Definitely requires the Force to even be good in the first place. Pretty weak stat line. I don't actually seeing this being all that powerful unless the decks really go later in the game. Like unless we start seeing really mid-range to late game decks, I don't think Yoda's going to be all that powerful. We also though have Yoda's lightsaber, which is 2-cost upgrade attached to a non-vehicle unit. When played, you may use the Force if you do heal 3 damage from a base, and you get +3/+1. So very aggressive, but also very defensive because you have to heal the 3 damage from a base. Definitely interesting for some more racing decks, but because you get to pump up your unit while also healing your own. But it's +3/+1, which is not an upgrade that we've seen very commonly, and you need to use the Force to get the full effect. Otherwise, just +3/+1, and I don't think that's going to be good enough, realistically. Next up, we've got Following the Path. This is a 1-cost event. Search the top 8 cards of your deck for 2 Force units, reveal them, and put them on top of your deck in any order. This is basically like the previous cards that we've seen. Like, this is the way where we get to, search our deck for various different cards and then, well, draw them. Except in this case, we don't draw them. We just put them on top of our deck, which I think is significantly worse. So not a huge fan of Following the Path. I think this is pretty bad, actually. Next up, we've got Oppo Ran. I'm gonna butcher this name. I'm sorry. Anyways, 3-cost ground unit in double command. It's a 3/5 Force Jedi Republic. This unit gains ambush while another friendly unit has ambush, and it's the same for Grit, Hidden, Overwhelm, Saboteur, Sentinel, and Raid 2 while another friendly unit has Raid, and Restore 2 while another unit has Restore. So basically, this guy absorbs all those keywords that your other units have. Obviously, great in a keyword soup deck, like a Morgan Elspeth double command deck. Maybe you could play this guy and get some real good value going. And I'm actually pretty excited to play that type of deck. Next up, we've got another double command card in Acclamator Assault Ship, 5/8, 7-drop spaceship. We've got Republic Vehicle Capital Ship. On attack, you may give another unit +5/+5 for this phase. So obviously, Fat Capital Ship only does something on attack. I don't think it's very playable. Doesn't have ambush, doesn't have immediate impact on the board. You could use this as a win con because it comes down, it's a big space unit and pumps up your other units, but I don't think that's going to be the case realistically. Next up, we've got Minok. This is a 2-cost space unit. In command, it's a 2/3 creature with Overwhelm. So a nice 2/3 creature in space. Not bad, right? If this was a ground unit, I'd be like, pretty bad. If this is a space unit, better. And it does have, creature synergies. There are a lot of creature synergies in this set, including like Malakili, Kanan, etc. Next up, we've got Hive Defense Wing. This is a 3-cost space unit, 2/4 Restore 1 with the Separatist Vehicle and Fighter tags. Not exactly all that exciting, but we have seen some 2/4 Sentinels be playable. This one has the Restoring, which is kind of nice. but I don't think is all that good. Again, another sort of just standard common. Next up, we've got Outer Rim Mystic, 2/6 Force Fringe unit for 3 in ground. Basic common, not really going to be playable. It's a fat butt, but not really that strong. Next up, we've got 4-cost ground unit, Kadu, 4/4. When playing, you may give another friendly unit overwhelm for this phase. So definitely a okay body, I guess. It's pretty below average, to be honest. And then you just get overwhelmed for something else. Can be nice if you're playing like very high powered units and then you're protecting them in some sort of way or another. The overwhelm could do some decent work. Next up, we've got Dagoyan Master, 5-cost ground unit, 5/5 Force. When played and when defeated, you may search or use the Force. If you do, you search the top 5 cards of your deck for a Force unit, and you get to draw it and reveal it. So a little bit of value when he comes down, a little bit of value when they go away, and it's 5/5 for 5, not a horrible stat line, has the Force tag, all okay. I just don't think this is where you're going to want to be using your Force token to draw into some more Force units. It's not bad for a mid-range matchup, so I could see it maybe fitting in there, but outside of that, it's on the weaker side of things. Next up, we've got Relic Scavenger. This is a 5-cost ground unit, 4/6 Restore 2er. Comes in just a 4/6 body, so it's going to be a little bit more survivable for 5. Definitely on the weaker side in terms of stat lines, but does have Restore 2, which is kind of what its value is. I don't really see this being all that powerful. I don't really see many decks even considering to play it. Next up, we've got Trident Assault Ship. This is a 6-cost space unit, 6/6 Overwhelm Separatist. So anytime I see a Separatist card similar to the Hive Geonosis fighter earlier, I'm thinking of like Count Dooku and maybe being able to exploit it out. And this is a 4 essentially cost when you exploit a droid token, 6/6 Overwhelm space unit. It's not the worst, but it's still not good enough, I think. Just kind of like a standard common. But we also have the Purgle King. This is an 8-cost space unit, 4/12 with Restore 4. And when played, you draw a card for each friendly unit with 7 or more remaining HP. This guy draws a card for himself because he's going to have 12 HP when he comes down. And he is a 4/12, which is just funny. And he does have Restore 4, which is a lot of Restore. I don't think this is really where you're going to want to end up going in your decks. But if you're going to be building a Space Whale deck, this guy's got to come in. He's going to be a fat butt, and he's going to have a big restoring body, which is pretty nice. And he will end the game relatively quickly. Next up, we've got Pilio Star Compass. This is a 2-cost upgrade, +1/+1. When you play it, you search the top 3 cards of your deck for a unit, and you get to draw it. Not that impressive. 2 costs for +1/+1 is definitely way below the stat line. And then this is essentially 2 costs +1/+1 for a draw card, right? You get to draw a card and get +1/+1 on unit. So would you pay 2 for an experience token and an extra card? Probably not in Star Wars Unlimited for the vast majority of time. And that's not even guaranteed. Next up, we got the Burden of Masters. You put a Force unit from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck. If you do, you can play a unit from your hand and give it 2 experience tokens to it. So essentially, you pay 1 for 2 experience tokens. Is that good enough? It's okay. Definitely an interesting way to utilize some resources, but I don't think it's all that powerful. Gonna have to have Force units, gonna have to have units in your discard pile, and you're gonna have the perfect amount of resources to be able to play that card with the extra resource cost. As we move on to our final 2, we've got Overpower next up. It's a 3-cost event in command, giving unit +3/+3 in Overwhelm for this phase. Guys, we've seen a lot of these over the course of time. None of them have been very good. None of them have actually come into play. None of them have actually performed all that well. All these temporary buffs. This one, at least it gives Overwhelm, which means you might be able to use this in conjunction with a unit to take out a unit and it hit the base a little bit. But I'm not really high on that card. And the same thing goes for Rampage. 3-cost event. Each friendly creature unit gets +2/+2 for this phase. Not enough creature units for the first point. Very, very minimal in terms of what you actually want to play on curve. And then on top of that, even if you did have all creature units, is super easy. The +2/+2 for all units hasn't even really come into play, with the exception of like a Unity of Purpose deck where you were really able to pump in a ton of units, like Rex, who comes down, deploys the 2 droids plus the clone trooper plus him as a leader. Even then, this doesn't affect them. So unless it was like all units, there really isn't anything Rampage is going to do. But that's all the command cards. Now we move on to aggression. And as for our first card in aggression, we've got Grand Inquisitor. This one's a 3-cost ground unit in aggression villainy, 3/4 hidden with raid 1, and also gives all of your other Inquisitor units hidden, which means any future Inquisitors that you would have played are going to gain that hidden ability, which is pretty nice. Although if you're playing the third sister, then you're going to get hidden anyways for all your units. But raid 1 on a 3/4 isn't too bad. It's also got the Force and Imperial and Inquisitor tag. It's got 3 power, which works really well in Grand Inquisitor original, right? Because you can buff himself up and get an attack in for 4 immediately, which is kind of nice. Or not buff himself up, but ready him up himself immediately. So definitely some minor synergies here and there. A 4-powered attacker, but with 4 toughness is definitely decent. Nothing too crazy about this guy. Nothing to really complain about, but nothing overwhelmingly solid. So decent. Next up, we've got Heavy Missile Gunship. This is a 4-cost space unit in aggression villainy, 4/3 Separatist droid vehicle. Again, Count Dooku, I always think of it. This one has an action to just exhaust and deal 2 damage to a ground unit. So another space unit can kind of come down and hit ground units, but this one doesn't actually need combat to do it. But it is a 1-time per phase thing because otherwise you get exhausted, right? So unless you can find a way to ready it up again, you're not going to be able to deal 4 to a ground unit in a single phase. Not super big of a fan of this one. It's going to die to basically everything. A lot of 3-resource space units, dies to Blue Leader, for example. The action is too slow. It's going to take a while to actually get that value going for Heavy Missile Gunship. Overall, kind of weak. And for our next card, we've got Battle Fury, 2-cost upgrade in aggression villainy. +3/+3, which is way above curve. Well, not way above, but slightly above curve. And then it gains attached unit on attack, discard a card from your hand. So big downside. I don't think this is very good. There's a lot of exhaust, lots of waylays, lots of removal. So even if you do get this down and you don't even attack with it at all, there's a good chance it just dies. On another note, let's say you do get some attacks in. If you're fighting a mid-range deck, is this going to give you enough value in terms of the trading you're going to be able to do, or enough pressure to where the cards that are being discarded don't matter? It's going to be tough to say. The format has been pretty mid-range focused, so losing cards in your hand seems pretty devastating. Next up, though, we've got Rey. And this one, when I first read it, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then as I thought about it more, I was like, ooh, I don't know about this one. So 5-cost ground unit, aggression, heroism, 5/5, okay? And it says, when you draw this card during the action phase, if you control an aggression leader or base, which you're probably going to have that because you're playing Rey, although this is to prevent anyone from playing it outside of aspects, I'm guessing. If you do, or you may reveal this card from your hand. If you do, you deal 2 damage to a unit and 2 damage to a base. So you might be thinking, oh, well, aren't I just going to play this in like every deck? Because if I draw it, it's just 2 damage, right? Remember, you draw cards during the regroup phase. So you're going to need something like, for example, over a couple cards, Kiadi Mundi, when played, you may use the Force if you do draw 2 cards. So now if you use that in conjunction and you happen to draw a Rey, you suddenly can, hey, here's a Rey, 2 damage to something, 2 damage to your base. I think there might be something there. If there's going to be a deck that already wants a card like Kiadi Mundi, I could see slotting in a 3 of Rey. Just because you can resource this, because it's pretty bad. It's literally a 5-resource 5/5, which is just bad, right? It's only good for the draw effect. If you have a deck that cares about drawing cards, I could see playing this. Outside of that, it's obviously a card that I'm never playing for the most part. Next up, we've got Sin Dralig, 8-cost ground unit in aggression heroism, 5/6. When playing, you may play a lightsaber upgrade from your hand for free on this unit. And if you do, you get to ready him. Pretty interesting. Comes down as a 5/6, probably gonna get like +2/+2 at the minimum with a lightsaber. So 7/8, or even an 8/7, or it could be all sorts of different toughness. 6/8, 6/9, something like that. But it's an 8-drop. And you need to have lightsabers in your deck. Otherwise, it's just a 5/6, right? That's bad. 8-drop 5/6 is atrocious. You need to have the when played ability in order for this card to be even remotely playable. And even if you do have the when played ability, are you going to be able to do a lot of value, get a lot of value with this? I think this is one of those cards where, like, let's say I'm playing Anakin Blue and I'm playing a deck with Jedi lightsaber in it. Now, if I happen to just play that deck, maybe I play a 1 of Sin, and suddenly, sometimes I have an 8/9 that gets readied up because I have a Jedi lightsaber in my hand. That could be pretty cool, but I think you're going to have to be in that style of deck for Sin to even be remotely playable. Next up, we've got Knight's Saber. Speaking about lightsabers, this is a 2-cost upgrade in Aggression Heroism attached to a Jedi non-vehicle unit, +3/+2. Pretty straightforward. Nice stat line, to be honest. 5 points of stats for 2 cost is where your upgrades really want to be. But again, is this something that you're going to want to be playing? Usually not. There's not really a ton of cards that super benefit from having like upgrades on them. So this is just kind of, I can play this to pump up my units and attack in, which can be good in some circumstances. But again, as I've said with the previous upgrades, waylays, exhaust, removal, all things you have to think about. Next up, we've got Focus Determines Reality, 2-cost event. Each friendly force unit gains Raid 1 and Saboteur for this phase. So the idea is you play this, you get to bypass all those Sentinels and get in for even more damage. Again, a card that requires a bunch of units on the board, and even this requires force units, a bunch of force units on the board. So very, very unlikely to happen, and not even that big of a buff. Next up, we've got Double Aggression Paz Vizsla, 5-cost ground unit, 3/6 Mandalorian. This unit gets +2/+0 for each damage on him. So basically like Omega Grit, right? If you got 5 damage on this guy, he becomes a 13/1. That's awesome. Pretty cool. Obviously, Double Aggression Grand Inquisitor. You put 2 damage on this guy, he is a 5-cost, immediately readied up 7/4. That's pretty sweet. And that's all I'm thinking about because I don't really know what other deck is going to want to play this guy. Bo-Katan, Mandalorian Tribal, maybe. I don't know. Maybe Darth Maul, where you're dealing damage to your own units and it becomes a 5/5. Like that could be something. I guess Double Aggression Maul. I don't know. Grand Inquisitor is where I'm thinking about this guy, and he is pretty sweet in Grand Inquisitor, and that's it. That's all I'm really thinking about. And next up, we've got the new Probe Droid, DRK-1 Probe Droid, 2-cost ground unit in Aggression. It's a 2/3 droid, and it's pretty straightforward. When playing, you may defeat a non-unique upgrade. This one might have some chance to sideboard card if you're going to be fighting a lot of decks with non-unique upgrades. Take, for example, Night Saber becomes one of the most popular cards in the meta. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But let's say it does happen. I could see this being played, turn 1 or turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, whatever. Just having a cheap card that can defeat an upgrade and still getting a body for it. That's pretty nice. Because remember, Confiscate is 1 resource. And this can hit any non-unique upgrade, which is pretty impressive. So if there's going to be non-unique upgrades, like Traitorous, for example, this comes down and is still a unit alongside defeating that upgrade, similar to Disabling Fangfighter, which has been a card that people have been sideboarding in for a while now. Next, we've got Cardinal Interceptor, 3-cost space unit in Aggression, Underworld card. It's a 2/3 with Raid 2. So again, another card where I'm like, ooh, Grand Inquisitor, maybe you can ready it up and attack for 4. That's kind of cool. But outside of that, I mean, it's pretty weak. It dies to Blue Leader. Anything that's just really bad into Blue Leader scares me because Blue Leader is very common in the meta. So Cartel Interceptor, not a huge fan. On the other note, we have Hyena Bomber. And this is kind of like the second version of this type of card that we've gotten so far. This is a 3-cost space unit, 2/2 Separatist Droid Vehicle Fighter. When played, if you control another aggression unit, you may deal 2 damage to a ground unit. And what I mean by like second type of this type of unit is not really, because one really focuses on hitting the base, and that is the Separatist Droid Bomber, I believe it's called. But that's also a 2-cost. It comes down, and if you control another Separatist unit, you get to go ahead and smack the base, which is not bad at all. Not bad at all. This one, though, you're really focusing on hitting opponent's ground units. So kind of similar and also kind of different at the same time. I don't think it's very good. It's kind of like the TIE Dagger, the one that deals 2 damage to a damaged damaged unit. When it gets played, similar resources. This one requires you to have another aggression unit, whereas that one requires you to have an opponent have a damaged unit. So, and this one can't even hit space units, so I don't think this is all that powerful. Next up, we got Jedi in Hiding. This one's actually a ground unit, 3-cost ground unit, 3/3 Force Jedi. Hidden, when defeated, may use the Force. If you do, each opponent discards a card from their hand. This one's actually not bad. Okay, 3 resource, 3/3, not a fan. It has Hidden, which gives it bonus points because some 2 resource plays could potentially trade with it if that's something they wanted to do, but this one prevents that. So that's nice. Second thing is, it is a 3/3 with the Force Jedi tags. Not bad tags. Those are relevant tags. Okay. The third thing is, if it dies, you're still getting decent value, which is making your opponent discarding a card from their hand, but you do need to use the Force. So I'm not saying this is a great card by any means, but it's a playable card potentially, because you do get a little bit of value despite having such a kind of mediocre stat line, actually just straight up bad. Next up, we get to scroll on down over to Blockade Runner. This is a 5-cost space unit in aggression. It's a 4/4 Saboteur. When it deals combat damage to a base, you get to give an experience token to it. Pretty cool. It gets to kind of literally run the blockade. So you get to smack your opponent's base, bypass all this stuff, and get bigger. It's still a 5 resource 4/4 in the space arena, which dies to things like Marauder. It dies to even Eager Escort Fighter. It doesn't match up well into a lot of the Sentinels that people play. So overall, it can bypass the Sentinels, which is pretty nice. But even then, your opponent can just still attack it. Not a huge fan. Next up, we've got Sase Tin. We've got 5-cost ground unit, 4/6 Force Jedi Republic. When played, if you have the initiative, deal 1 damage to each of 3 units, kind of like an IG 2000. But instead of being a space unit at 4 for 3/4, you get a ground unit at 5 for 4/6 stat line. But you also get the Force tag, which is nice. IG 2000 was really good because of Django. The card hasn't really seen a whole lot of play outside of that, and I don't really see anything different with this card here. Not only do you have to have the initiative, which is a very big downside, but you also need to get some sort of way to get value out of the extra 1 damage, and it's just not really going to happen all that often, to where I don't think this card is all that powerful. On another note, we've got Invasion Control Ship. This is a 7-cost space unit in aggression, 5/9. Each friendly unit gains raid 2. That's awesome. So you just pump up your bunch of droid units. Cool. Not very good. Very expensive. Droid units are not very popular, not very good either, but it's cool. Maybe you could get an army with like Invisible Hand of like the droid tokens, and then you pump it up, and then suddenly they're all attacking for 3 damage. But that's kind of like a pipe dream, to be honest. Next up, we've got Heavy Blaster Cannon. This is a 4-cost upgrade in aggression. It's +2/+2, which is not good. But when played, you may deal 1 damage to a ground unit, then deal 1 damage to the same unit, then deal 1 damage to the same unit. Funny way to word it, because it's a heavy blaster cannon. I think that's kind of more thematic than anything else. Trying to think of what would matter to deal 3 separate instances of 1 damage. And if someone knows anything, let me know in the comment section down below. I'm drawing a blank right now if there is anything. But I just think of, I compare this to like Flamethrower. Is it Vanguard Flamethrower? I want to say Vanguard Flamethrower, but anyways, the Flamethrower, that 3 cost +1/+1, deal 3 damage as you choose amongst ground units. In the vast majority of cases, I would just rather have that. Why? Because this one requires you to do this 1 damage to the same unit over and over again, where the Flamethrower you can spread it as you wish, which is a lot better. Next up, we've got Unleash Rage, 1-cost event in aggression. Use the Force. If you do, give a friendly unit +3/+0 for this phase. Okay, very cheap. Still not something I'm super big fan of. I've played with a bunch of these cards where like, okay, I can get a big hit in maybe, but I have to, use the card and then, eventually get an attack in. Don't like that style of card. I don't think it really plays well in Star Wars Unlimited for the most part. However, this one's really cheap, and it is a big power bump. 1 cost event for +3/+0 is a lot, but you do need to use the Force. That is a downside. I don't know. I think maybe a hyper aggressive deck, maybe if you have a bunch of units available to you to where you actually have the ability to play this, maybe when your opponent's out of resources, when it's a good time, you can actually get some damage in, maybe. Next up, we've got Do or Do Not. You may use the Force. If you do, draw 2 cards. If you do not, draw a card. Pretty straightforward. It's just a 2-cost event that draws you 2 cards if you use the Force. Not something that I think most decks will be playing. It's not a card that usually Star Wars Unlimited format and the way this functions is really interested in. So not something that I think is very relevant at all. Next up, we got Lightsaber Throw. This is 2-cost event in aggression. Discard a lightsaber card from your hand. If you do, deal 4 damage to a ground unit and draw a card. This one's kind of cool with like, I was thinking like, okay, what deck's going to want this? Obviously, a deck that's going to be playing lightsaber cards, because 2-cost event to basically just deal 4 to something is pretty good, right? Yes, you have to lightsaber in your hand. Yes, you have to discard it, but you replace it by drawing a card. And honestly, there are a lot of decks that just kind of play a couple lightsabers here and there. Like if you think about it, okay, let's say I'm playing, again, Anakin Blue or Luke Blue or Luke Green or whatever. I got Jedi lightsabers, I got Luke lightsabers, things like that in my deck. Boom, I play Lightsaber Throw, I discard that lightsaber, I kill their ground unit, I get to refresh my card. Cool, the lightsaber's probably not that great anyways if I'm using this in the stage of the game, because this is not a unit that I can attach my lightsaber to. So I think it's actually kind of decent. And I can see this being played as a couple copies in some of those decks. Next up, we've got Time of Crisis. This is a 4-cost event. Each player chooses a unit they control. Deal 3 damage to each unit not chosen this way. So, kind of like a... I don't want to say board wipe because it's not. I just think this card is pretty bad, actually. If you think about like bombing run was never something that actually ended up being good. And that's 3 damage to all units in a specific arena. This kind of works that way. Think about like, okay, if you don't have any units on the board, your opponent has a bunch of units, you play this, maybe you knock out a couple of units, you deal a little bit of damage to others. This just doesn't have a big enough impact to want to play it in any attack. 3 damage is just not enough to actually take out units. So I'm not very impressed with this one. But that's the end of the aggression cards. On to Cunning. Starting us off with Adept of Anger, 1-cost ground unit in Cunning Villainy, 1/3. Action, use the Force, exhaust a unit. Kind of interesting. It's a 1/3. It's got the Force tag, which I do think is relevant. Obviously, you can just attack in and get the Force token generating. And this also pays itself in that you can use its action then following on the next future turns to exhaust units. So not bad at all, but not something that I think is going to be all that relevant in a lot of decks. It's a 1-resource 1/3, right? Next up, we got Deceptive Shade, 2-cost ground unit in Cunning Villainy. It's a 2/3 Sith Undead. And when defeated, the next unit you play this phase gains Ambush. This is really interesting to me. So Sith tag, that is relevant. No Force, but if you just think about what this could allow for, it's pretty incredible what you could really do. Think about giving Ambush to any card in the game, or even like any 3-drop or any 4-drop, because that's usually when this thing's going to die. It's going to be incredibly powerful. But there's always the chance where you don't have the initiative. You play Deceptive Shade on turn 1, and they play Sabine Wren on turn 1. And they just claim, they kill your unit, and... Well, actually, I take that back. It still works. So I don't even know what I'm talking about. That still works. I mean, it's not incredibly good because you still end up in a situation where like you've lost your 2-resource play and they didn't really lose anything yet, but at least you do get to ambush out your next play. I mean, it's interesting. It's very interesting, but I don't actually know how powerful it is. Because I go back and think about that, like that whole scenario where it's like, okay, if they just play like a standard unit and they outtrade this, can I make up the value of playing a 2/3 with an ambushing unit? Sometimes yes, and sometimes no. Really depends. So very, very cool unit, I think. Next up, we've got Banking Clan Shuttle. On another note, it's a 3-resource space unit, 3/3 Separatist, hidden. That's it. That's all you got. Definitely not as unique as the previous unit talked about. And I also think it's not very good. 3-cost, 3/3 space unit, not great unless it's got something really good going for it. Ambush is like a key factor, or some other effect that's really, really powerful. This is just, hey, I'm a 3/3 that you can't attack immediately and kill, but you can attack next turn and kill. So not a huge fan of that one. That moves us on to Corrupted Saber. 2-cost upgrade in Cunning Villainy. If attached unit is a Force unit, it gains on attack. The defender gets -2/-0 for this attack, and it gives +2/+1. So First off, +2/+1, pretty bad stat line. +2/+2 is like average, and then like +2/+3 is really where you want to be at, or like +3/+2. But this is giving you the effect of maybe shrinking down your opponent's units to a significant degree to where you can actually get some value going. One of the things that I'm thinking about with this is like with Grand Inquisitor, the new Grand Inquisitor, you can put this on a force unit, use the Grand Inquisitor ability, give -4/-0 to a defending unit, which means that that's basically going to not hit your unit at all. So you can get a lot of value there. But how realistic is it to play Corrupted Saber and get multiple attacks in and actually like do good work? If you think about like Jedi Lightsaber is a good card. It's something that people play, but it oftentimes isn't good enough. And that gives -2/-2. It's +3/+3, and it's only one additional resource. So I'm not a huge fan of Corrupted Saber. The next one we've got, move on to page 5 here. It's going to be the N1 Starfighter. This one is a 2-resource space unit, 3/2 Naboo vehicle fighter. Kind of interesting, not necessarily incredibly powerful. A lot of the tags here are not going to be all that great for a lot of the decks that are going to be looking for it. But if any deck is looking for like a mercenary gunship style of ship, it's going to slot in. Totally reasonable, totally fillable, and not bad at all. The next one we've got ends up being a little bit further down in Premonition of Doom. The next time you take initiative this phase, exhaust all units. So the idea here is use this event and then you take initiative and then you exhaust everything. If you think about what this is going to do in an average game, let's say your opponent starts with initiative. They attack, you play this, they attack, you take initiative, great. You exhaust the other 2 units or the other units that they have. Probably not that powerful. Let's say you have initiative, okay? You play this, your opponent sees this, and they're like, oh, they're going to take initiative. Well, I'm just going to attack, at least with one thing. And then I'm going to play my other thing for kind of free. I don't see this being good, really, at all. It's just not that powerful. It takes too many actions. If this was like, you take the initiative, exhaust all units, maybe there was some stall tactic you could do. But even then, I don't think it's all that powerful. The next step, we've got Zuckuss. But this one's a double Cunning Zuckuss in 4/7, 5 cost, force unit. Very, very sweet. And he is going to be attacking. When you do, you name a card, then discard the top card of the defending player's deck. If a card with that name is discarded, you get +4/+0 for Zuckuss. It turns into an 8/7 attacker for 5. How likely is it to pick up the card from your opponent? I immediately think of Thrawn. Guys can play double Cunning Thrawn. That would be sick. You're going to always name the correct card off the top of their deck. It's going to be an 8/7 attacker. That's awesome. Like, that's pretty sick. Not going to lie, guys. That's pretty cool. And I may just do that because that's awesome. But outside of that, very rare that you're going to name the correct card unless you have other access to checking their deck, which you really won't oftentimes. So it's just a 5-resource ground unit 4/7 with the force tag. I don't think it's all that powerful, but really cool. Next up, we've got Force Speed, double Cunning, 1-cost event. Attack with a unit. For this attack, it gains on attack return any number of non-unique upgrades attached to their defender to their owner's hand. So you put this, you get to bounce all the experience tokens, the shield tokens, etc. I could definitely see this being decent. You know, we have things like Surprise Strike and things like that that are used in combat to defeat higher powered units. This could definitely be used to like remove shield tokens, remove experience tokens, and just take out a unit. I'm thinking shield tokens is probably the most relevant, but definitely experience tokens as well, like a Shield Sin or something. Not that this is like an incredible event or anything like that, but I do think it might have its place as like a 1 or 2 of in certain double Cunning decks. Granted, there's not a lot of double Cunning decks, so I think those spots are scarce, so probably not, but it might have a chance, okay? Next up, we got Babu Frick, 1-cost ground unit in Cunning. It's a 1/4 Underworld card. It's got an action. You may attack with a friendly droid unit, and for this attack, and this is crazy actually, it deals damage equal to its remaining HP instead of its power. Think about this for a second. You play any droid unit alongside this, and it completely changes the game. Think about the droid units that we have. BB-8, R2D2, C3POs. All those cards are like one force, right? You play Babu Frick and R2, suddenly your R2 is a 4/4. That's insane. That's awesome. I don't think this is very good because you need to have Babu Frick out. You need it to survive, and you need to use the action every turn for it to actually work. But that's really, really cool. And I like the style that they're going with this card. Next up, we've got Mysterious Hermit, 2-cost ground unit, 1/4 ambusher, but has the force tag. Is this actually going to be all that good? I don't think we're in enough of a pressure to get force units to the point where we need to play Mysterious Hermit. And I don't actually know whether this ambush is actually going to be good enough at any point to be worth playing her. The thing I'm thinking about is like maybe if your opponent's playing like Death Star Stormtroopers or things like that, you could play this and you get to ambush, kill their units, and then you're left with a 1/1. And it's like that going to do anything in the later stages of the game? Maybe because it's a force unit, so you can like force throw later or something. So maybe. But that's really the only thing I think about with Mysterious Hermit here. Following that up, we got Tusken Tracker, 3-cost ground unit, 2/4 with raid 2. When played, each enemy unit loses hidden for this phase. So basically can only really get a ton of value when your opponent's played a hidden unit, and then you play this after they play hidden, because then you can attack them, right? Because hidden just gives them the ability to hide from attacks on that turn that they're played. A 3-cost 2/4 with raid 2 basically ends up being a 4/4 on attacks. Again, not like incredible, but not bad. Same thing I said with Grand Inquisitor earlier. Definitely not like super exciting, but definitely get some hits in. It's a Tusken, which is cool, and that's about it. I'm hoping we're gonna see more Tuskens in the future. That's all I can say, guys. I don't know. This card's just kind of like meh. Next up, we've got Chargin Phylac, 4-cost ground unit, 3/4 ambush hidden creature. 4-cost 3/4 ambush, not that fantastic. It has hidden, but I don't think you'd care about hidden, especially if you're ambushing on that turn. I don't think ambush hidden is a great combination unless your unit really wants to live after ambushing. This one doesn't really care about living after ambushing because it's just a 3/4, right? And it'll probably like a 3/3 or 3/2 or 3/1 after the time it's done ambushing, or it'll just be dead because it's a 3/4, and that's not a good stat line. On to the next one, we got Life Wind Sage, 4-cost ground unit, 3/5 force unit. While an enemy unit is exhausted, this unit gets +2/+0 while attacking or raid 2. It's a 4-cost 3/5 force unit that can potentially become a 5/5 on attacks. Like, I guess. Again, another one where I don't think is that strong. A 5/5 for 4 is good. That's a good stat line, but it doesn't have anything else. And just a 4-resource 5/5 isn't oftentimes good enough, right? So even if you have the good stat line, is that good enough to be played? Not in every deck. So that's something to think about. We've also got Sorcerers of Tun. This is a 6-cost ground unit in Cunning. It's a 6/6 force fringe shielded unit. It's a 6-resource 6/6 with shielded. Is that great? Probably not. It's just a 6/6 with shielded. There's nothing else to it. It's got the force tag. But to be honest, like, as I've spoke about all these cards, especially when you get later on in the game, the force tag matters a lot less because you have so many other force units throughout the game that the late game, that's probably when you've already gone through all your force synergies to where it doesn't really matter. So it's kind of just like a 6-resource 6/6 shielded, and that's not good. Ascension Cable, 2-cost upgrade, attached to a non-vehicle unit, gives it Saboteur +1/+3. Very, very defensive when Saboteur is usually an aggressive mechanic, although it can be used to defeat a lot of shield tokens. Not very, very big fan of this upgrade. I don't think it's very strong at all. Maybe you can use it to take out crafty smugglers and the like, but that's pretty much all I can see for it. Next up, we've got Disturbance in the Force, 1-cost event. If a friendly unit left this phase, the Force is with you, and you may give a shield token to a unit. So this is kind of interesting. You know, giving a shield token to a unit is quite nice, and generating the Force is also quite nice. Usually, if you're in a deck that wants the Force, you have so many ways to generate it and not enough ways to pay you off. So I do think that's something to consider. But think about like Qui-Gon Jinn, where you're constantly bouncing units. Boom, you just get another Force token and another shield token. I think that maybe could slot in there. Outside of that, I'm not really sure. Force Slow, 1-cost event, Force card in Cunning. Give an exhaust unit -8/-0. I would have loved to see this just be any unit. That would have been kind of cool. like use the force, give an exhaust unit -8, -0, or use the force, give any unit -8, -0. The fact that it's an exhaust unit means they've already kind of gotten their attack in, so you can't like prevent any damage, but you can maybe take a value trade. But these cards that incentivize value trades usually don't play out all that well, as we've seen a few of them in the past. Next up, we've got Psychometry. Choose another card in your discard pile. Search the top 5 cards of your deck for a card that shows a trait with the chosen card. Reveal it and draw it. Wow, that's a lot of work for a lot of nothing. Okay, 1-cost event that allows you to draw a card from the top 5 of your cards that shares a trait from a card in your discard pile is not that good at all. I would rather just play a better card in my deck than spend another resource to do something like that. Of course, there are some situations, especially later in the game, where this can be relevant, but I just don't think the inconsistency and the addition of this card is actually going to make your deck better in any sense. We've got Trust Your Instincts, 1-cost event. Use the force. If you do attack the unit, it gets +2/+0 for this attack and deals its combat damage before the defender. Now, this card is awesome. This is one of the best force payoffs we've seen in the entirety of the set. Using the force, you're going to get +2/+0 attack. Straight up, you can attack bases with this. But then you also get the shoot first effect, where you get +2/+0 and kill off a unit and take no damage. And the difference between +1/+0 and +2/+0 is pretty massive. This thing I can absolutely see being played in a vast majority of the force-based decks, just because of how powerful +2/+0 and attack is, period. But the fact that you get a shoot first on top of it, my gosh, is this card pretty powerful. Next up, we've got 3 Lessons. 2-cost event. Play it from your hand. It gains hidden. Give a shield token and a shield token to it. Okay, so I'm paying 2 resources to essentially get a shield token and an experience token. Not that powerful. It's okay. It's not terrible. You do have to play a unit from your hand. You can't just retroactively give an experience token to and a shield token. I actually think this card would just be better by a large margin if you pay 2 to give a shield token and experience token to something. Because the problem with this is that you now have to play a 2-drop on like turn 3, or you have to play a 3-drop on turn 3, a 3-drop on turn 4 actually. It just kind of throws off your curve so massively to where the shield token and experience token usually aren't enough to bring you back. But it's not horrible. It might fit in. I don't see it fitting in potentially. Maybe in like Gar Saxon. You never know. Gar Saxon, guys. Next up, we've got Tip the Scale. 2-cost event. Look at an opponent's hand and discard a non-unit card from it. Okay, guys, we've seen a lot of these cards. We've seen, Jam Communications. We've seen Spark of Rebellion. This is basically Spark of Rebellion, but worse, right? Remember, Spark of Rebellion is just going to give you the option to choose any card from their hand and discard it, just straight up discard it. This one does have the force tag, which, again, may be relevant, but it also prevents you from hitting units. So I just don't see this being all that much of a main deck card, potentially a sideboard card though, because Spark Rebellion is a sideboard card a lot of the times, and well, it's a pretty good sideboard card. So I can definitely see this being a sideboard card for some of the more controlling matchups. But that's Cunning, guys. We've got one more page to talk about, and that's going to be all of our Villainy and Heroism cards. The first Villainy card we've got is Fallen Jedi, 3-cost Villainy, 3/4 Force Jedi. Straightforward. Probably a card that most decks don't care about, but maybe in like Revan, right? The fact that this is just Villainy means that it's really specifically towards decks that are hamstrung for certain cards to be played. That's why it's reducing the aspect. But a 3/4 Force Jedi is not unique for 3 anymore, right? Force is just not unique with this new set. So you do need to do a little bit better than just a 3/4 for 3. We've got, as for our next one, Sand Trooper Cavalry. It is our Cavalry, 4-cost ground unit, Villainy, 2/6 Imperial Creature Trooper, and it's got grit. It's got grit. Kind of cool. You put it down, you can ready it up with Grand Inquisitor, and it's a 4/4. That's kind of cool. These types of cards I have not really seen perform all too well. Very, very weak stat line. Definitely has to get in combat first. before it even starts doing anything, which is really, really slow to start. We've got HK87 Assassin Droid, 5 cost ground unit in Villainy, 4/4. When defeated, deal 2 damage to each ground unit. Pretty straightforward. It is an assassin droid, right? You play this, it's basically a 6-powered attacker because you attack a ground unit and now it dies because it's 4 toughness, means it dies to everything, and then you deal 2 damage to everything. Is that relevant enough? I don't think so in a lot of matchups because it does hit your own units too. I don't think 2 damage is all that amazing either, but it's not like terrible. But I don't really see where you'd want to play this over a lot of other cards. We've got Army of the Dead next. It's a 6 cost ground unit in Villainy. It's Knight. It's Undead. It's a 7/6. Pretty straightforward. 6 resource, 7/6. Again, these are kind of commons. They're just kind of draft playables. It's got the Knight tag, which I don't think is all that relevant, but it's a 7/6, which is not good enough to be played in Premiere, but it's cool. We've got the Sun next up. It's a 7 cost ground unit in Villainy, 6/8 force unit. While the force is with you, each friendly unit gets +2/+0, which includes himself, which means he's an 8/8. Really, really cool card. Seeing the son, the father, and the daughter, which we will see father and the daughter later on. Spoiler, I guess. This one, it's a 7 resource 6/8, which is not that great, but it does come down and will potentially pump up the rest of your units. I'm not like terribly excited by this guy. He's super late in the game. It's probably not going to matter that you pumped up your units. And if it does, where you have a lot of units on the board, you're probably in a winning position already. So I'm just not a huge fan of the Sun, but really, really cool seeing the Sun, period, in the game. We've got Consumed by the Dark Side, 2 cost event in Villainy. Give 2 experience to a unit and deal 2 damage to it. So basically what this is give +2/+0 to a unit as an upgrade. Or if it has grit, give +4/+0 to a unit, right? That's kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting. I don't think it's very good, right? Again, +2/+0 is not good. It's basically like playing a +2. Like, why would you play this over Darth Revan's lightsabers, right? Why? This gives +2/+2. This gives +2/+0, right? Again, unless there's some sort of value being earned from having multiple experience tokens on something or grit or some other factor that way, I just don't see this being a good card at all. 2 cost event next up, Flight of the Inquisitor. You may return a force unit and lightsaber upgrade from your discard pile to your hand. Basically draw 2, but only from your discard pile. Again, these types of cards that draw you 2 cards haven't been very good, and this one's even more restrictive, forcing you to have a force or lightsaber, actually both, in your discard pile, which is way more limiting. Next up, we've got In the Shadows. This one's kind of cool. Give an experience token to each of up to 3 friendly units with Hidden. So 2 cost event in Villainy. Kind of interesting. We've seen this type of card with like General Tog, right? Comes down, gives an experience token to each of up to 3 troopers. We've seen this with the 5 cost Command Heroism 3/5. Give an experience token to each of up to 3. I think it's Jedi units. I don't actually remember what it said, but that type of effect. It's always been pretty weak. It's hard to get 3 units on the board that actually live. Hidden does help with that, but this also limits it to just hidden units. So I don't think it's playable, but just a cool card. Next up, we've got Voltex, 2 cost ground unit, Heroism, 3/2 hidden. Okay, do you want a creature? That's really what it's asking. Kanan may want this. Outside of that, I don't really see this being all that powerful. Obviously, you could play double Luke Kanan, play Voltex, and then Doom, right? That's kind of cool. Next up, we've got Gungan Warrior, 3 cost ground unit in just Heroism, 3/2 shielded, restore 1. 3/2 shielded is not bad for 3. Restore 1's also relevant. I don't think this is a horrible card. I could definitely see this being a pretty good draft staple, but I don't think it's strong enough to be played in Premiere. Again, pretty straightforward unit. Not really going to get all that much value from it. It is what it is. We've got Jocasta Nu as the next card. 3 cost ground unit in Heroism, Force Jedi Republic. When played, you may attach a friendly upgrade on a unit to a different unit. I should say friendly upgrade on a friendly unit. So you need experience token, a shield token, some sort of upgrade that you control, and then you can move it to a different unit, which means you can also move it to Jagostanu herself, right? So you can move the experience token to her. I don't think this is really all that relevant. We don't have a lot of cards that really care about having upgrades specifically on them over other cards like Gar Saxon, for example. So moving upgrades around just doesn't really provide a whole lot of value. We've got Medical Frigate next. 4-cost space unit in Heroism. It's a 3/6 on attack. You may heal 2 damage from another unit. Heal taking 2 damage. It can be relevant sometimes. Most of the time it's not. It's a 3/6 space unit for 4. Not a horrible stat line, but it's not very aggressive, which to be honest is okay because you're trying to get some value from the on attack triggers. Overall, I don't think this is very strong at all. We've got Blue Squadron Assault Wing. 5-cost space unit, 5/5 with raid 1. So it's a 5-cost space unit, 6/5. It's actually very aggressively statted. If you think about 5-cost space units that we usually see, we're seeing like 4/5s, 5/5s. The MC30 frigate or whatever in command is a 5/5 with raid 1. This is basically the same thing. That card hasn't really seen any play. I don't expect this one to see any play. That one, I guess it does see some play in Piet, but that's because it's a capital ship. I don't see this one seeing any play whatsoever. The Daughter, 5-cost ground unit in Heroism. It's a 4/6 force unit. When damage dealt to the base, you may use the force and you may heal 2 damage from your base. This one, I think, is a little bit more interesting than the Sun. The 5 resource 4/6 is not a good stat line. Not happy about that. At least it's a little bit tanky, but still dies to 6 powered attackers, right? Which is relatively common at this point at 5 resources. And healing 2, like I'd rather just have restore 2, to be honest. And would I play a 5 resource 4/6 restore 2? No. I think we even talked about a card like that earlier. It's just not that powerful. I think it's actually better than the Sun, but even so, I don't think it's that powerful. Like we got Long Beam Cruiser next, 6-cost space unit in Heroism, 6/6 restore 1. Another one where it's kind of just a stat stick with a little bit of a keyword, not that powerful, not exactly like an insane stat line, and also not enough restore to really warrant me trying to play it. But we still have a couple more cards in the non-colored aspect. Starting us off with Gifted Urchin. This is a 2-cost ground unit, 1/4 force unit. Again, if you're looking for a force unit on turn 1, this can be one of them, I suppose. But we have so many at this point, I don't actually think that this is going to be played at all. We've got Kowakian Monkey Lizard, 2-cost ground unit, 2/1 creature ambusher. 2 resource, 2/1 ambush. Is that going to be good? I don't think so. Even like Cloud Rider is not something that I think is like insane. And that's a 3/1. And even that doesn't even kill everything these days, especially with 4 toughness in the meta. Guys, set 5 has a ton of 4 toughness units. This card looks horrible. We've got Pelimoto here, 2-cost ground unit, 1/4 on attack, give an experience token to a friendly vehicle or droid unit. This one's actually kind of interesting because you can play this on turn 1. It's probably not going to die, and then you can start really stacking up, assuming you have a vehicle or droid unit on turn 2. Start stacking up those experience tokens. The problem is that there's not going to be a ton of droid units. Vehicle units there are, because all the space units for the most part do count as vehicle units. So you can start stacking up experience over there. So I don't think that's horrible, but I don't think it's great either. We've got Ravening Garndark. Really, really cool one, actually. Cool art. Some of the art just reminds me of such nostalgia, 5-cost ground unit, 5/4 creature. When played, deal 1 damage to a ground unit. Okay. It's a 5 resource 5/4 that pings 1 damage. Not good at all, guys. This is the stat line that I want for a 4 resource unit. And honestly, the ability is a little bit underwhelming for a 4 resource unit also. It is creature, I guess. We've got the Father. This one, 8-cost ground unit, 5/10 force unit. When you use the force, you may deal 1 damage to this unit. If you do, the force is with you. Do I think this is playable? No. It's an 8-cost 5/10 bad stat line. All it's about is I use the force, I get the force. I use the force, I get the force. I use the force, I get the force. How many times can we actually use the force and it be really good? Not a lot, because there's not a lot of payoffs in the set, unfortunately. Next up, we've got Go Into Hiding. Choose a unit. It can't be attacked this phase. That's it. 2 costs. Choose a unit. Can't be attacked this phase. Basically forcibly giving hidden to a unit. Not a huge fan. It is what it is. Spending 2 resources to stall an attack on a unit. Not actually that powerful. It can be good, I guess, later on in the game when you're trying to set up lethal, and this can be something that forces some damage in because your opponent can't interact with your units. But I think it's going to be few and far between, and probably a win more scenario in most cases. And then lastly, we've got last words. 2-cost event. If a friendly unit was defeated this phase, give 2 experience tokens to a unit. So essentially 2 resources, 2 experience tokens. Not the worst, but again, there's a lot of cards out there that do a lot more for similar resources. Like, would I want to play this? Or would I just rather play an upgrade that gives me +2/+2 that doesn't require me to wait till a unit's defeated? Probably just the upgrade, right? Like, if you compare this to Academy training, you get the same stat line. You don't have to be beholden to the actual condition. Yes, the 2 experience tokens may be better if you care about multiple upgrades. That's the only situation I can think of. Or if you're an aspect that has no upgrades available to you, that's +2/+2. But I would rather just play the upgrade over this. So anyways, that is it. That is the whole set, guys. That's everything. There's going to be no more spoiler videos, but there are going to be a ton of videos from all the new leaders. I think of the cards, the leaders, at least, there's a lot of cards that I think some of them are pretty good. But honestly, the leaders were more exciting to me. Obviously, Anakin is number 1 on my list. Maybe actually number 2, because there's another one that I'm actually really excited about. But Anakin, incredible stat line for 5. I shouldn't say incredible, but very, very good. And incredible potential with the new Anakin unit. Has some really, really cool options by playing both Vilainy and Heroism cards in your deck. So I do like that. The other one that I think is really, really interesting is Kylo Ren, actually. You might be surprised, but I am curious how big of a Kylo Ren we can get down when we deploy him. The only thing I'm worried about is being able to actually get to Kylo Ren in the first place. Like, that's going to be tough, right? That's going to be pretty tough. I think you could play like double blue Kylo and then just use him as purely a win con, and then just play like all of the controlling events, and then just play a bunch of upgrades and discard them as you go along. You could also go like Kylo Green, so you can ramp, which I think are the kind of 2 options. I mentioned Kylo Green earlier with like Resupply and Super Laser Technician. I think that is another option. But I'm very curious to see what we can pull out with Kylo Ren. That is going to be a fun game whenever we get to it. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below, guys. I cannot wait to dive into some of the leaders. I cannot wait to play the set. I'm a little bit disappointed that we don't get the full set, you know? But that's how it goes. Or like, I'm a little disappointed that we don't get the full preview season, but that's how it goes when leaks happen. And that's just what it is, right? When some people share things that they obviously should not when they're in the public, or when maybe content creators got access to things they shouldn't have, or other people got access to things they shouldn't have. Who knows what happens? Maybe this was just never going to happen if that one person didn't post that Reddit post, right? Because as soon as that person posted the Reddit post, the comments were going insane, right? And there was like comments in my videos, comments on other people's videos, multiple Reddit posts, multiple people posting about that. The account was even deleted. Whether that was them deleting it or someone else, who knows? I mean, there was so many things going on just by posting something. So I'm very curious to hear what's going to happen in the future. But regardless, doesn't make the set any less sweet. And I'm excited to dive into it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.